I may have spoken too quickly. Let me explain, if I might, just briefly, if I understood your question, though. I think one key thing we need to remember in terms of the balance between savings and spending on the part of people, of consumers moving forward, is that, as I said earlier, we need to rebuild an economy in which people don't have unsustainable personal debt and stagnant wages. There are millions of people in this country who can't save more because their healthcare costs are hurting them, or they're making minimum wage and there's been no real growth in their income in these last 30 years while productivity has soared and corporate profits have soared. What I seek, and I think Obama's plan is moving toward, is a shared prosperity. On the issue of nationalization, I didn't put that in the context of democracy. I put that in the context of what may well be the most rational response to insolvent banks. You know, the FDIC is closing failed banks every week in America. And we're not hearing as much about it because we're fixed on these banks which are too big to fail, banks which grew that way because of the deregulation. What I was talking about in terms of democratization of our banking and finance sector is that we go back to a situation where we don't have banks too big to fail, where we have banks which are just doing what banks used to do, lend and offer you a toaster, and still have innovations, but regulated if you were going to do the hedge funds and the private equity, which this country, you know, has done, and it is an innovation, but those should be regulated. If we're going to keep this derivatives market, they should be regulated. But my point is that we could use a return to regional banks, which are stronger, by the way, than these two banks too big to fail, and an economy of banking and finance that exists to serve people and society, and not vice versa, so that there is a more democratized economic system, including the Federal Reserve, by the way. If we are going to see an expansion of regulatory oversight, which we need, more transparency, more accountability, I don't think it should be with the Federal Reserve, which is inherently an anti-democratic institution, unless you bring in stakeholders and citizens and people from different parts of our community, and not just leave it to some Wizard of Oz oracle. That's what I meant by democratization.
Two more questions. Over here.
My name's David Elias. I recently ran for a state house seat locally. And Ms. vanden Heuvel, number one, first off, I'm 100% of Arabic ancestry, and not all Arabs are Muslims, firstly. Secondly, I resent liberals speaking on behalf of my people. What's offensive is, first off, when hyphenation is one of the liberal keys. African American, Asian American, I don't see Lebanese or Arab American. Okay, my point is, the obsession with liberals of, our perception around the world. I want radical anybody wiped off the planet that wants to cause me harm. I don't care who they are, of what background. I want them wiped off the planet.
Sir, do you have a question?
I'm sorry.
Question, sir.
I will, excuse me, I'm sorry. My point is, why is it so necessary to be accepted? A good parent does what needs to be done, regardless of whether it's popular or not. And in the same sense, we're the envy of the world because everyone wants to come here. Why do you insist on beating this country down when we're still the greatest country on the planet, bar none?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I regret my misuse of hyphenation. We are a great country. We are a great country because you could stand up tonight and say what you said and you're not carted off. You know, I don't hate the military. In fact, I would, since you've now asked a question from the floor or the seats, I think those who have stretched our military so thin, who have harmed our military, I would argue, in an unnecessary war, a war that didn't need to be fought, a war that this country was misled into. And I don't want to refight history right now, it's contemporary history. But those who love our military would send young men and women into battle only if the most desperate case was made. I am not against military action, but I do believe that military force should be the last resort. And in terms of wiping people off the earth, I do not believe that is the American way. I believe the American way is to respect the values upon which this great nation was founded, to protect our security, but to respect the values of free speech, of liberty, and to do as much as we can to strengthen our democracy at home, which allows you to speak as you did tonight, and not export it at the tip of a gun. So I could go on, but to be accused of hating my nation is a very grim thing to hear in this good city.